So let's go ahead and move on to the next topic too. Something I think that you are a bit more passionate about. This movie that we got coming up in November that will be on theaters and on HBO Max. And I got that report right here from comicbook.com. Your boy, the Dune director, Denis Villeneuve, says Marvel movies are cut and paste of other films. Elliot, what is he talking about? And guys, before you answer that, if you're watching this via live or in the replay, there's a link down to this article down in the description box below. Excuse me. For you to read at your own leisure. And if you're curious to know what Denis Villeneuve looks like, this is what the gentleman looks like right here. But let me go back to the article and read this foolishness. It says, Dune director Denis Villeneuve said that Marvel movies are cut and paste of other films in a recent interview with El Mundo. Now he's not the first filmmaker to criticize what the House of Ideas is doing with their cinematic universe, and he won't be the last. Specifically, the director said, there are too many Marvel movies that are nothing more than a cut and paste of others. Villeneuve has also been adamant about people seeing his films on the largest screens possible rather than the day and date release model that other Warner Brothers pictures have had since the pandemic began. But this time he seems to be taking aim at the tone of some of the Marvel movies in a critique that wouldn't be out of place on Twitter or Reddit when it comes to how Marvel formula is deployed. Some are probably going to agree with him, and MCU fans are going to defend their favorite movies. Villeneuve definitely has a right to his own opinion and feels conviction in the argument he lays out. But the internet will surely debate this entire question into the ground before the day is over. And he kind of goes on, and let me read a little bit more. We have been hearing in the past few decades that it is not possible to adapt this book. Wait a minute, that's not what.
Oh, you're talking about Dune?
Yeah, you're talking about Dune. Okay, we can get to that in a second. What do you make of this? Because I have an opinion on it, but I'm going to ask you first. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, yet again, another journalist, picks a headline out of a big-time director with a film coming out. We got that a couple years ago with Martin Scorsese. There's been other actors and other directors that have kind of spoken their piece, if you want to call it that, about Marvel. And I'll say this, to play devil's advocate, there's a little bit of truth in that, to be honest with you. Not necessarily the copy and pasting of it all, but there's a formula. There is a formula that Marvel uses with all their comic book movies, as well as DC, as well as Star Wars, as well as every other genre. I think every genre has a certain map that they follow. Yes, certain directors, writers, they divert from the map, but ultimately there's a map that guides you to A to B or A to Z in any genre: action, horror, comedy, comic book, you name it. There's a map that a lot of people follow when making those types of films. So when it comes to the truth in his comments, the copy and paste, there is a formula that Marvel uses that we've seen for the last 13 years. Obviously, Black Panther is much different than Ant-Man, but there's a reason why Black Panther made 1.3 billion and Ant-Man made 500 million, right? Because they're different films and they appease a different audience. So there is a difference in those movies, but they are, there's a hero's journey. There's this, that, and the third that is very similar in a lot of those movies that we see. So there's a little bit of truth in what he's saying, but on the backside, and I know people mention he's super mad, he's jealous. I don't think it's that. Again, you guys got to remember, these are journalists that are just looking for that headline. And there's a lot more than what he said in that article. Like he even mentioned, Chloe Zhao, having Marvel hire her to do the Eternals is something new, something fresh, something unique. James Gunn a couple months ago talked about how some of these, he didn't say Marvel, but he said some of these comic book movies are the same thing. So it's not like we can't throw fire at Denis Villeneuve and not, have anything to say about James Gunn just because he's making comic book movies. So again, there's a little bit of truth in what he's saying, but at the same time, we obviously know that they're not the exact same movies, but there is a formula that's being made, and if it ain't broke, they're gonna fix it. The reason why Marvel movies are so successful, because people, when you go to and this is just a whole thesis of like movie theater experience, when you go to a movie and you enjoy it, it's because there's familiar beats. So you feel at home, you feel comfortable, you've seen this story before, you like certain stories, as they say. So there is a formula that's working for Marvel that's getting people into the seats. So again, I know I'm reading the comments too, people are obviously taking his comments as him being jealous, but no offense, I don't think Denis Villeneuve has anything to be jealous about in regards to Marvel. I don't think he ever wants to do a Marvel film. And then I hope, he continues to do what he's doing outside of the MCU or whatnot. But I can see where people can get upset, but I don't think it shouldn't be taken as him him being jealous or being, you know, that type of person. But hey, teach your own.
Now, just before I get my comment, you know, y'all heard me say there's a link to this article down in the description box. It does go on to talk about more of him wanting to film the first 2 films together. I really don't care about this story because I know nothing about Dune, but feel free.
I can't wait.
Feel free to read on if you like. I'm more concerned with the Marvel stuff. As far as your comment, I do agree with you to a sense, to a degree, as far as his statements being somewhat true. However, I think that he is a moron for even making the comment at all. Like, yes, these journalists do ask them that, but some of these journalists, man, are shady as hell, and they're petty, and they're just like, "Ooh, let me see if I can get him to say this so he can look bad." And they go back and forth, and they just, I mean, I don't know. This was done by El Mundo. I'm not trying to say that the people over there were trying to be messy, but I'm just saying in general.
No, I'll say it. They were trying to be messy. Because why would you ask him about a Marvel film if he's talking about Dune? What does that have anything to do with Marvel?
Okay, well, that's fair. I was trying to be fair because I want to judge in context, and I didn't hear the whole interview. But you could be right. But I still think, but like you have a movie coming out. Keep your mouth shut. Just talk about Dune.
Right.
Okay. Even if this is going to make a small dent, it's still a dent. You know, you want to make as much money, dollars, quarters, pennies as possible. That's how I look at it. And it's like, come on, man. At the age you're at, experiencing, man, you just know certain comments you're going to come across as a hater. Even if somebody takes your whole quote and puts it online, and it's not just a headline thing. This was just ignorant to me. It just wasn't smart. He still does seem like a hater to me a bit, even though what he's saying is true.
Yeah,
you know, like it don't need to, some stuff is not necessary. You don't have to say it. You can just be like, hey, it's all good. They do their thing. I'm doing my thing. More power to them, and keep it going. You just, to me, on some code stuff, you just don't talk about your colleagues like that unless you're praising them. And so I don't know though. I could be completely wrong in my assessment with this, but
I agree with you, man. I think there is, and this goes for all directors and actors. I don't know if they're not coached up. Like you're totally right, Brandon. If someone's asking, if you're on a press junket promoting your movie, and if someone asks you something outside of that movie, you know, next question, or as you just said, hey, I don't really watch Marvel films. I don't really have too much input to say about them, because to take your opinion, if he's saying a copy and paste, that means he's seen these films. He's watched Marvel films. You can't say that without
I got you.
So I know, I totally get you, man. I think he should have just maybe passed on, you know, like I said, no comment or whatever the case may be. But hey, man, he might be one of those dudes that I don't think he has any social media presence at all. So he might be one of those people where he's just like, hey, I'm taking this interviewer as a, not in my best interest, and we're just having a conversation, and not knowing that who he is and knowing the trigger words, Marvel, MCU, copy and paste is going to blow up. And he's just like, hey, this is a genuine conversation, got caught up in it, and just having, and I'm pretty sure, like I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure there was more in that conversation than what, obviously the headlines, because I've read some of the conversation where he does, like I said, he praised Marvel for doing something different and hiring a Chloe Chow, who's an independent small director, won the best director last year. So he had some good things to say about them. But obviously the bad things are dominating the headlines. But like I said, Brendan, to your point, I think these directors moving forward, if they don't have nothing, like your mom and dad and grandma and grandpa used to say, if you have nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all. So
right.
Freedom of speech, I guess.
Right on, man. Well, well said, and I do appreciate that.